Alright, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh and good evening. My name is Muhammad Zaim Bin Ahmad Yusof from TESL 5, PSMP June 2021 to 2026. And this is my video snippets for TAS 1 TSLB3422 digital portfolio. So there'll be a few things that is going to be the main contents of this video, which is I'll be explaining some of the materials and explanation analysis that I have made to be contented in this portfolio, which is going to be classroom instruction, behavior management, oral and written feedback, types of question in a classroom, and we are going to closely trace its relevance towards our Malaysian classroom. So the purpose of this digital portfolio is to provide clear examples of analysis and the use of language in giving instructions, managing behavior, giving oral and written feedback, and different types of questions in the classroom. So I guess without further ado, let's get right into it. For classroom instructions, there are a few sources that I've used, and I'm using this journal as the base reference for these two comparison of a lesson demonstration that I found online. So in the first video and the second video, we are going to be looking back at the analysis that I made, which is going to be tracing back the differences and similarities between these two videos. So these two videos is somewhat similar in terms of language instructions in a very general manner. So we are seeing lots of similarities in key points that a teacher should achieve. So in a classroom demonstration, a teacher should be able to give clear, concise, and simple instruction that can be easily understood by the students. And we are seeing similarities between these two videos. And the instruction that is used in both of these videos is also very positive. There's incorporation of gestures and usage of active verbs, which is kind of the appropriate methods to give instructions in a classroom. But then if you look back at the first video and the second video, we can see the most obvious differences between these two videos is that in the second video, the teacher was using a presentation as a visual material, or he's visually aided. His lesson is visually aided. Between instructions, he has prepared a slide that somewhat explain his instructions so that the students can easily understand and follow his instruction. And we can see that being very effective, although he's in a very big classroom with lots of students, but none of the students were actually in confusion or lost. They were all very obedient and obeyed to his instruction to the teeth. And in the second video, we can see that the teacher used a formal language. And keep in mind that in this second video, the lesson was done in a foreign country, which is not exactly a foreign country, was done in a non-native English speaking country, which is China. And since he's practically teaching a lower skill speaker in terms of English, so he's very formal. He's trying to build this habit where the students are surrounded by formal English. So he's using very formal language, very simple and easily understood wordplay. And we can see he's repeating lots of key points so that the students can actually grasp what he's trying to say. And every bit of his instruction is very sequential. So this is very contradiction. No, it doesn't contradict. It's very it's very distinct from the first video, since we can see in the first video, since the lesson was done in America, which is a native English speaking country, so the instruction was very advanced. It was very fluid, and there's also ICQ's incorporation in it, and the questions which is in the instructions was very divergent. So he sort of instructed his student to be more open-ended to answers and actually critically think between these instructions. And we can see the teacher also warmed up his students before the lesson, and every involved direction instruction, he used a very logistical direction instruction that can be somewhat very clear, but also has many contents as possible. Okay, so now we're moving on to classroom behavior management. How do we manage classroom behavior? So the analysis that I've done is based on these two, I guess, research paper. One of them is on a in a format of an article or a blog, and one of them is a journal. Was published in 2005. Titled Classroom Behavior Management: A Dozen Common Mistakes and What to Do Instead. We can see seven principles being mentioned in both of these materials, maybe not directly, but the content was very similar, and I have analyzed it and put it into seven principles that can be recognized. So which is clear expectation, consistency, positive reinforcement, consequences, classroom routines and procedures, build positive relationships, and effective communication. These are the seven principles or seven key points that I have found in both of this material, both of these sources. Okay, so when we look back at the sources, uh, in the journal, it was a research where its purpose is to find mistakes, common mistakes that is seldom happen in a classroom management. And there's many mistakes being mentioned here, but I'm not going to explain that, since that's not the main focus. We are going to be looking back at the principle, which is to the first one is to set clear expectation. We can see how is it important to set a clear and specific behavioral expectation from the beginning, so that the student don't act out and have this very expected action to meet with your expectation in the first hand. So it's very important. First, you set a very clear expectation, and that expectation must be met with a right consistency, which is the second principle. We need to be consistent in enforcing the expectation, and I guess consistency is a principle that needs to be done in every principle of uh, classroom behavior management, because we also need to be positive in reinforcing positive acknowledgement. We also need to be very consistent in setting up a consequences, or I guess punishment, when the students do something that we don't want them to do. And classroom routines, procedures, it's also very important to establish clear routines, so that they are, I guess, somewhat familiarized with what is it that they have to do every single morning, every single day at the start of a lesson. And it is also very important to be consistent at building positive relationships, so that they don't actually hate you, because it's also very important for them to see us as a, I guess, somewhat a vessel of their parents, so that they can be very open to us, and I guess somewhat be very lenient towards improvement in terms of behavior in a classroom. And lastly, all of this cannot be possible without effective communication. We also need to use very effective styles of methods to communicate. So we have to maintain our open lines of communication, and be careful with our words. So there's five things that we can spot the relevance between that and Malaysian classroom. But then all these relevance that I've analyzed is based on the second journal, which is has mentioned lots of mistakes that is seldom happen in classroom management, in a classroom behavior management. And we're seeing lots of poorly definition of a misbehavior. Lots of teachers is like, every time a student misbehave, they don't actually know why they do it. And it's also very important to not just like straightforwardly ask them that, because we might actually get answers that we don't even like, which is being mentioned here and on the second mistake. Because the possible answer because might the possible answer is not even something that might be pleasant for us to hear, because they might say, because this lesson is so boring. That's very, I guess, unpleasant. And when we're looking back at an approach, when the approach doesn't work, we don't exactly have to try harder. Maybe another approach is the way. And lastly, uh, rules and boundaries are one of the one of the very significant things to, I guess, look out for when we're in a terms of managing behavior in a classroom, because these things are what control them, because without these they don't have a clear understanding of what they can do. So it's very important to have rules and boundaries in a classroom set by the teacher. Okay, so now we're moving on to an analysis on these two sources, which is going to be manifested around oral and written feedback. So let's get right into it. There's three very important principles that we need to recognize, which is timeliness. We need to be very instant with our oral, either oral or written feedback, so that student can instantly connect whatever feedback that we give to their mistakes, so that they are still in fresh in their mind, and so that they can instantly improve whatever they can based on the mistake that they done. So this also very closely related to the relevance in Malaysian classroom, but we're looking back at the guidance and self-regulation, and also language usage and skill, which is very two important points when we trace back it's relevant to a Malaysian classroom. So since Malaysian classroom, in a Malaysian classroom, there's going to be a lot of very weak speaker in a class, so it's very important that we explain step by step by guide after a feedback, because a feedback without explanation is sort of useless. We need to explain to them what is there that can be fixed in detailed manner, so that they can actually improve. And it's also very important to keep in mind that the language that we use, and we need to be very simple in our wording and repeat key points, so that students don't get lost with our feedback itself. And okay, so lastly, which is classroom questions, the question that we give in a lesson is also very important. So I've made analysis which is going to be based on this journal, a case study or of an EFL teacher's type of question, and it's going to be an investigation into classroom interaction. So based on this journal, we can spot three types of questions, which is open, closed question, display and referential question, yes and no question. I guess these types are pretty much self-explanatory. You can also look at the infographic here. So open close is meant to be designed to encourage students to provide detailed and thoughtful responses. So the questions is usually formatted in words like how, why, or what. So display and referential questions, on the contrary, is typically a single correct answer. So the question itself has very one concise answer that the student must actually achieve to be, I guess, right, to answer the question. And lastly, which is pretty much self-explanatory, as yes and no question. Also, although this question is not good to be used in a classroom, but it's also very important since it's very straightforward. So if we need a very straightforward response from the student, whether they understand or not, so that they can respond with a simple yes or no. So it's also very important to be used in a classroom. So there's three very important relevance when we're talking about questions in Malaysian classroom. But then taking back at the factors that Malaysian classroom usually will be very somewhat weaker than foreign classroom. So we need to recognize that questions, very successful questions or great questions, help students to be more critical and able to envision its future. So questions that helps them think about their future is also closely tracing back to the close relation of Malaysian classroom. Secondly, understanding can be assessed through questions, like I said, using yes and no questions, so that weaknesses, strengths can be looked into and student can actually improve. Lastly, which is very important, is that Malaysian classroom are usually very strongly manifested around concrete reasoning and explanation. So we need to be able to teach them how to provide concrete reasoning by giving them questions, train them to answer question with logic, rational, things like that. So I guess that's it for digital portfolio, for task 1 digital portfolio video snippets. And briefly explained all of the analysis on all of the source that I found on the internet. So that it is. Thank you.